And welcome back to the desk, ladies and gentlemen. Ravish shown here by Destrux and Cage in the Rage here, yo, gentlemen. Let's start it off hot because which exactly what Wildcard Red did. And we're saying before they are red, so we don't think they're gonna get a little bit spicy. Definitely, but considering what we've seen, Wildcard in this game number one, they just played their game like right from the gate. They started off swinging, Destrux.
I mean, we talked about how fast of a team Wildcard is. They want to close these out in the early game. They want to get those advantages. And they started off level 1 with this brilliant layering of CC to take down Niles, to take down one of those carries over in the top side. I say carry even though he's playing the Ornn, but someone who does facilitate a lot of agency when it comes to team fights for GGA, really focusing down and really getting Brandini ahead. And they just did this throughout the entirety of the game. Early game focus, 2-for-1 exchanges all over the place, and Golden Guardians were opting into a lot of these fights thinking they had a chance. Bradley even, was just too fast on the trigger when it came to responding to a lot of the plays that Golden Guardians were able to make. He was always showing up, and he also had Daption there who would clutch out those lanterns to save his teammates.
It was really Daption's roaming that made a lot of these plays possible, but I gotta wonder what Golden Guardians Academy was thinking through a couple of these plays, because they found two deaths just by overextending. First it was Rosethorn, and then I believe it was coming down to Niles, just picking out too far in the lane. They got this fight, which was really nice, but it was already too late by that point. They needed, as Alex said during the cast, another 4 team aces in order to come back into this game, and it just wasn't going to happen with how far ahead Wildcard Red had gotten. So when I think about game 2, I have to think about Golden Guardians Academy's comp. How do you change it up? And I think the answer lies in Niles.
Yeah, I do feel that as well. Golden Guardians definitely need a bit to swap up because this doesn't play to the late game win condition that we usually see Golden Guardians go for. Typically, Golden Guardians, they get past that 30-minute point, somewhere around there. You see them scale up, and you see them do great things, but over on Wildcard side, they're the ones that had a lot of scalability, having the Aphelios locked in the bot lane for Arrow, as well as just responding across the map to every single play that we saw from Golden Guardians by having that Twisted Fate in the mid lane. And it wasn't just a Destiny Gate. He would walk over to that lane just to run interference.
Just consistently, like you mentioned, like finding small opportunities to be able to come in, be like, nah. This can't be happening here, right now. And I believe Josh, you mentioned as well before in the cast, is that how GGA, a lot of the wildcard were consistently fighting in concaves. Was the word he used, which I actually liked a lot too, because from there, when you have something that is able to decide the terrain or how you take the fight, that being the Jarvan or Winston, then suddenly things do definitely turn on their head, and then you're thinking, how do we get in? How do we lock them down? Because suddenly we see the Chad that is badly in the backline, seeing Niles to absolute hell come, and then suddenly you're just thinking, okay, our engage is gone. Our backline's kind of torn apart a little bit, and our Bradley is just now 7-0 and 95. Things are a little bit bad.
I think that's a solid question right there. Like, how do we engage on this squad? How do we take down Wildcard Red? Because every time they would try to find these engages with the composition that Golden Guardians Academy had, it was stuffed, kited over and over, gold cards thrown out, flays thrown out, even Brandini running some interference. Golden Guardians couldn't get a solid engage onto Wildcard Red. So you saw a lot of these counter engages come out because you have the utility, you have the resources needed on Wildcard's composition, having stuff like the set, the showstopper. How many times did Brandini get flanks onto Golden Guardians Academy and just come from the back, completely pincering them in to crush them out? There was a lot of utilization of those resources, and that's what I really liked about Wildcard Red and their composition. I want to see some changes from Golden Guardians Academy, though, when it comes to their draft, because this is not the Golden Guardians we expect. Cage, I think you can echo my thoughts even better when I say this is not a draft that is exactly in the wheelhouse of Golden Guardians Academy.
No, this is something that I would have expected a lot better from them, because when you put Niles on weak side, what you're doing is you're saying, hey, go get Niles, because that's what happened over and over. He ended that game, I believe, 1-7 by the end of it. So really, you're just saying, I have Ornn, and I am the target from now on. And when Wildcard Red has the ability to collapse on one member like that, it's so easy. And the underplay, the person that I think got very little recognition throughout that game, Daption, wandering all the way around throughout that entire game. He was topside, he was mid, he was always ready with the Dark Passage. And I think if Golden Guardians Academy wants to go forward in this series, they need to ban that, or they need to have an answer to Daption's roams, because honestly, it feels like that was the main linchpin in what makes Wildcard Red's composition work.
Yeah, like exactly like you were saying, and especially when you're opting into the Syndra Aphelios matchup, right? Although fantastic for the Syndra, you're also leaving Aphelios weak side and deciding, hey, Adaption has time to essentially just go outside of his own timers and really just go where he pleases. So definitely, yeah, coming out of the darkness and saving so many of those plays, making sure that as you got towards that mid game, GGA, even though they may have had a little bit more of an advantageous positioning when it came down to some of those dives, they just were not in terms of the overall like same itemization level or like the scaling level to be able to take those fights. And then stuck on the back end, and Wildcard Red got to play that game exactly to their pace. Even though we went near, the whole 25-30 minute mark, by the time we got there, like Wildcard was just so far ahead here, Destruct. So definitely, I think that's one thing that I'm personally looking for, that like GGA can't fall to their pace again. They can't be giving up these just small incremental leads, because we know a Wildcard knows how to take leads and just sprint across the finish line with them.
I do want to give some attention over to the bot lane of Golden Guardians Academy, Prismal being on the Syndra. I think even though Golden Guardians did get crushed in that game, Prismal put out a really good performance. You can look at his scoreline, it's not the most impressive 2-3-1. He was able to output a lot of damage and facilitate a lot of those fights, make sure those fights didn't end in complete catastrophe like we saw with some of those tower dives over in the bot lane. Prismal getting that nasty scatter the week to be able to save that.
It was definitely well played by him, and honestly, I think the Syndra still works for the team comp. I think drafting for game 2, you have to think about that first pick a little bit more, because while the Aurelia flex is really nice and you have the ability to kind of get the matchups that you want, you do want something in the mid lane that can get going a little bit faster than that, because you have the Ornn, you have the Syndra. They're going to take time in order to get there. Aurelia is a good mid lane comp, but I think you need something even earlier to pair with Winston, or not with Winston, excuse me, with Rosethorn, so that you have the ability to dive in, or you have the ability to collapse top, so Niles feels a little bit safer. So maybe not the Aurelia first. It's definitely still something that you can think about, though, as the games get later.
And this really comes down to the way the draft was handled on both sides, because Wildcard did go for a lot of those powerful picks on the first stage of the draft. Grabbing Twisted Fate right from the get-go is a huge pick. This is because Golden Guardians Academy were trying to deny the early game from Wildcard. If you look at their first bans, Leona, Renekton, Lee Sin, these are all champions that come online very early. You can tell the game plan from Golden Guardians is to stop that early game, but you have to be careful in letting picks like that go through, such as the Twisted Fate, which was that first blue side pick for Wildcard.
Yeah, and we've seen how TF has actually been quite prioritized as well on the side of GGA too, where they picked it both times in the previous series up against C9, right? We know how much they actually love to use that past level 6 to try to go for some of the mid game dives, because that's where GGA do kind of come online. Whereas before that too, it'll be small skirmishes, maybe once in a while a little 2v2, and then but before that too, they like to chill and they like to play a slow, controlled, methodical game, which is really where I find they do shine. And then translating those small leads into side lane pressure, and then just overall bigger macro. But that's just one thing I didn't want to go for too, because like just this rise that we're seeing out of Wildcard Red, I find can be attributed to a lot of different voices. We're talking a little bit about what the calls are being made inside of the game, what GG might be saying, but like I wanted to put a focus back on the bot lane, right? Especially just focusing in on Arrow. It's a veteran who's come in and he's really put up a really I find like a phenomenal and like strong voice in terms of leadership for the Wildcard side.
Yeah, when we talk about Arrow and everything he's done, he's a very historied player. He's a very historic player. He's left a legacy in the LCK that resulted in quarterfinals finish in Worlds 2015. Now he's working in the developmental of North America, trying to raise that up. And, having someone like Daption next to him is great. Daption is someone who absorbs knowledge. He's relatively new to the scene. He's excited to work with these experienced players. It makes me happy to see someone like Arrow, who joined Wildcard initially as a coach, be a part of this squad, be a part of the development. And of course, you can't shy away from Arrow's performances. Even in that game, even though he wasn't the standout player, his CS was on point, his positioning was on point, and he got the DPS done that he needed to.
I mean, honestly, his Moonlight Vigils throughout the game were incredible, and I think Aphelios really does lean into what the strengths of Wildcard Red are, which is let the rest of the team go for the crazy engage early on and let them get the picks, while Arrow just kind of stays in the back, farms up, and then eventually comes into the team fights around the 25-minute mark with explosive damage. So I feel like this bot lane really knows the strategy of send Daption somewhere else, keep Arrow bot. But on the other side, you have to think about Newbie and Prismal, who have the ability to just go all in onto Arrow. And I feel like the matching roam was not the call coming in from Golden Guardians Academy. You saw Newbie going around. He was always behind Daption on every single roam. And in the early game, you saw 4 kills going over before Daption was before Newbie was able to fully get into fights. So really just change up the strategy, maybe focus a lot more on getting the bot ahead so that Prismal can get the advantage on Arrow and not let him freefarm.
Yeah, because Prismal too was like, I find people have been talking about him as just one of the top 5 prospects in terms of the overall academy scene, and like across the board, both of these rosters bolster a lot of strength, a lot of mechanical prowess, and I find the voices that they offer too are one that are phenomenal though. But for now here though, friends, we're gonna cut it to a short break, and when we come back on the other end, we will have champ select. So we'll see you back in a bit.
Hello, welcome back to the casting desk. We're getting ready for Game 2 in this best of 5, finding out which team is going to join Immortals Academy in the top 4. But right now, we're just waiting for the champion select. Got a little bit of some bugs that we're working through, so just hold on with us. But that gives me and Josh plenty of time to talk about what we had experienced in Game 1 and what changes we'd like to see going into Game 2. So let's start off with the first is that we're not actually seeing a side selection. GGA have elected to stay on red.
We saw this yesterday as well, where Dignitas was remaining on blue side the entire series up against Immortals, and it's definitely something where it feels like both teams are kind of handshaking, where it's like, yeah, we have different ideas on what side of the draft we want to be on, because it's oftentimes something very contested, and it's usually because there's one or two picks that both teams really want. I feel like this series it's likely going to be the Twisted Fate, and this time we saw it going over to Wildcard.
And honestly, I would expect that to be banned going into the next game. I don't think that it's going to be left open. I think GGA thought there would be the handshake where Bradley would get Aurelia, Yunbi would get Twisted Fate, but it got flipped on the script got flipped on them when it was the Twisted Fate picked immediately for Bradley, as opposed to being the Aurelia, which they then took afterwards to make sure that they didn't get both Twisted Fate and Aurelia on top of it all.
And we also have to pay attention to, like, a lot of other teams are playing a lot of LeBlanc, Ryze, Orianna, Syndra as kind of the other 4 mid laners that basically every team has to play right now. Twisted Fate is very popular amongst a lot of teams, but these two teams in particular have been really focused on it. Just their ability for both Bradley and Yunbi to move around the map just kind of gives them unparalleled control over the side lanes. And when you're oftentimes playing towards Niles, regardless of what team you're on, whether you're playing for him or against him, you always want to make sure you can bring more people faster.
Right. And I'm kind of looking up the first 3 bans from each team from Game 1 and what might be able to be changed from the side of GGA or even from Wildcard. But I look at their bans. Lee Sin, I think you have to take that away from Winston. You can't just let that through. Renekton and Leona afterwards. I'm not exactly sure how those ones fit in. I know Brandini loves to play that Renekton, and that could work if they do want to run the Renekton in Italy composition that we've seen a couple times run here in the Proving Ground so far. But getting into Champions like 4 Game 2, Ziggs is immediately banned by Wildcard. I'm expecting that if they're on blue side, they're just going to permanently ban it.
Wouldn't be surprised. It is something that Prismal is much better at than a lot of the marksman players, the AD carry players typically are, and it just allows so much freedom for the rest of the map when Prismal is just so happy to just sit back and farm things up while everybody else is fighting on the rest of the map. Prismal is going to be able to be much more impactful on the Ziggs with a guaranteed range on his ultimate as compared to like the Syndra that we saw last time. He had a couple good stuns, but other than that was kind of just also in the game.
Right, and look at this. We're running back the first 3 bans. Ziggs, Lee Sin, Gangplank, Renekton make up 4 bans, all of the same from each side. Neither of them really opting to go for a different strategy here. And even, there it is, number 5, Ryze.
I mean, ultimately, I feel like this is the kind of thing where you have a lot of similar themes running through it, and people just realize like 1 or 2 picks are really upsetting the balance, and the Thresh going to be coming through for the first time now on Wildcard Red. This leaves Aurelia still available to Golden Guardians if they do want to pick it up, and it also challenges them, saying, like, you guys kind of have to pick the Aphelios now if you don't want us to have it, because I guarantee if Wildcard Red have an opportunity to pick it, they're going to grab it on their next rotation.
That's what I'd expect as well. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Aurelia and Aphelios, or maybe Braum Aphelios, just so you that. I mean, then again, you don't even need to pick the Braum. You know the Thresher's on the other side. Taking the Braum here, to me, screams that they have to get something like getting that Aphelios.
It's interesting to me because it says to me that Golden Guardians don't really feel like there's anything that's so strong blind that they want to pick it up. They want to try and get as many counter picks as possible, and they were like, hey, well, we know we want the Braum, so let's give us a little bit more time to figure out how else we want to play this. And it doesn't feel like Wildcard Red have really thrown any curveballs towards Golden Guardians just quite yet. So it definitely feels like ADFX is having a great job coming up with what they want to do. As the Varus comes through, I'm expecting the Aphelios to come through anyway, even though this is typically a good matchup for the Varus.
Right. I mean, it's something that can have some safety, even if it is in Varus Braum that's going to be able to get the concussive blows pretty fast. You have your Lantern to drag you back right before you're going to have the auto attack land. It makes a lot of sense. Plus, we have mentioned it before that if Arrow doesn't get his ADC in this first rotation, we generally have been seeing a lot of teams banning ADCs in the second rotation of bans just to make sure they could really whittle at that champion pool.
And now that this has come through, both bottom lanes have already been selected. We have to figure out what the rest of the map is going to be looking like. Bradley currently hovering the Syndra, and we know it can't be bottom lane because the Aphelios is already there unless there's some crazy tech. I know there were rumblings about an Aphelios top a long time ago, but those never...
That was a while ago.
those never really came to fruition. So it looks like Bradley going to be locking in the Syndra. This leaves like the LeBlanc and Orianna as some of the major picks, but also Irelia can be played into it.
Can be. I'm kind of expecting to see Orianna. I almost feel like GGA are going back to the drawing board on this one, not wanting to run a similar composition to the last time. Get it something a little bit more about the team fights inherently. Really try to work that out, but look at that. They proved me wrong by going for LeBlanc here, which is going to try to play around the side lanes instead.
A lot of people will look at this matchup in the Syndra versus LeBlanc, and it really comes down to who has better mind games, who has better hands. If you can't correctly predict when LeBlanc is going to be going back towards the original distortion point, you can get a lot of damage through from Syndra, but if you aren't able to do that, it becomes very difficult for Syndra to often take a lot of these trades into the LeBlanc because of how quickly LeBlanc often goes through it. As we move into the second phase of bans, you need to make sure that your team has engaged tools and the other team doesn't. That's why we're seeing the Jarvan already taken away from Winston, and he's kind of being pushed towards the Xin Zhao, but we also can't see Rose turn do it because Trundle's still available.
Exactly. So if that's still open, I almost imagine that instead we'll see something like the Trundle picked up immediately and holding on to the blind pick for Niles at the very end, like they tend to do. But they always try to get Niles the best matchup they could, even though last time it was set into Ornn, not really a favorable matchup for Ornn. They were able to round out the composition a lot more fluidly, and here, if they want to get that Ornn again, it would work pretty well for the team thus far.
And honestly, we're seeing a lot of different things come through. I still like the Ornn because both Syndra and the Aphelios are rather immobile. Now we are seeing the Xin Zhao, but without the Trundle ban. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was something Winston went towards. We've definitely seen him play a lot of games on it throughout Proving Grounds and during the other Tier 2 events as well. So Wildcard Red still have a lot of options, and creating a Trundle threat in the top lane, or in the jungle where you can just stand in front of this Aphelios and Syndra, definitely a very easy style for them to go for, and they do look like they're going to be locking it in.
It also makes it difficult to lock in that Ornn into the Trundle, because then he has a good target, either Braum if he's putting up the shield, or just Ornn at any point in the game. You go, perfect, I get my subjugate onto you, I'm going to be a lot tankier, and if that set goes through too, that's really answering a lot of what Niles would like to do if he were onto something that is going to have that non-committal engage such as Ornn does.
Set coming through also pushes the Ornn out a little bit. Now, notably, by picking up the Braum, Golden Guardians are largely limiting the ability for Wildcard Red to pick the Ornn on their own, right? It becomes very difficult to go for any of these ultimates. You can, like, ult backwards and then shoot it out as a second spot, which is probably the best way to go about it, but it's still something that you have a lot of options for. And because Niles has had his champion pool pinched so hard, he's going to be going towards the Gnar, something we haven't seen him play quite as much as a lot of other top laners, but definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, I know you love your Gnar. That is one of your favorite champions to play. And here, I actually kind of do think that this is good, because I mentioned before, the only thing I would have probably changed is maybe put that Orianna to really complete the pieces here for Golden Guardians Academy, just to be able to have that wombo combo. You saw how great they work as a team when they find the right moments. They know exactly when to pull the trigger. But here, having the LeBlanc playing around the side lanes and trying to see if you can get early pressure from there, that actually might be able to stop a lot of what Wildcard tend to do in their games.
If they are able to do that, it'll be good. We also saw a lot of Gnar yesterday in Immortals versus Dignitas, and unfortunately the Gnar wasn't quite able to actually leverage the Rage Bar particularly effectively. Niles hasn't played this champion a lot this season, so we'll see if he's going to be up to the task.
That we will. We'll be right back. We're going to a break. We're going to get back here for game number 2, so don't go anywhere. We're back on the Rift. Game number 2 here in our elimination lower bracket round 4 between Wildcard Gaming Red and Golden Guardians Academy. Wildcard have gotten the upper hand so far with 1 game already under their belt. They'd like to be able to make that a 2 immediately split against GGA. But here we have that Gnar that you so famously love, Josh, but looks like Wildcard are trying to set up exactly what they did last time again.
Niles shooting in and out of the brush isn't going to actually be standing in it. They aren't going to be walking in. They're trying to get something set up, expecting Niles to walk out, but Niles all the wiser this time. Not going to be giving any opportunities over. It doesn't look like Wildcard willing to force the issue, show where everybody is. And so Golden Guardians isn't going to be willing to walk in and go for some vision of their own, because even though we see so much aggression from Wildcard, and this is the second time in a row that they've done it, they actually haven't shown anyone, and so Golden Guardians need to be careful about where Wildcard could be.
I almost wish that Wildcard had done it again. The fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But Niles had been holding off on leveling any ability that entire time. He could have hopped away pretty easily, but that would be a good thing for Wildcard, getting a Gnar onto his hop so he can't poke out Brandini as efficiently at level 1.
It really is big. I talked about it a lot yesterday when we saw the Gnar take E level 1 up against Camille. It does really significantly limit your ability to actually control the landing phase early on, because it is your primary wave clear tool. But as we are watching the junglers, again, it looks like they're going for mirrored starts on opposite sides of the jungle.
But another little trade of blows in the bot lane. We saw this last time around. Didn't really come to fruition for anything between the 2 bot laners. But here, you can see that GGA aren't really feeling too threatened. They're utilizing that strength that you had talked about, the Varus into an Aphelios Thresh lane, not really feeling that he's going to be poked out too much or get caught out by Daption.
Now, it looks like they are knowing that they are going to be the strong side for the foreseeable future, right? Zinjo is already on the bottom side. Red Raptor's Gromp is going to be getting him level 3, and then he can potentially start looking for ganks. We saw how aggressively Winston was pathing last time. He skipped a bunch of camps in order to go for a lot of early game fights, but this time going for a bit of a more slower, more solid approach, right? Not necessarily going for any kind of early confrontation. Instead, just going to be clearing out a lot of camps and exactly mirroring the start that Rosethorn has gone for. So, Niles going to be at risk here relatively soon, as well as Arrow and Daption, depending on how Rosethorn and Winston are going to be pathing.
Well, that's what I was wondering here. Do Rosethorn and the rest of GGA actually try to commit for a dive into Aphelios Thresh, a really difficult to gank lane?
It is going to be very tough, but crucially, you can also move people up, right? You don't necessarily have to go for the dive. You are just creating time for yourself, and look at this. Rosethorn going towards the mid lane instead.
But look at how Bradley is hovering. He was hovering towards the top side where his jungler was at. They couldn't commit to it because they don't know where Winston is.
And it's just going to mean that Rosethorn's going to be 1 camp behind. He is going to be trading this bottom side Scuttle Crab, and potentially, if he moves fast enough, he could potentially try and contest the top side, but instead wanting to make sure that he can clear out his own jungle, as we're seeing trading in the mid lane.
Trade of blows back to back. Bradley, not much mana, having to use a lot of the Corrupting Pot stacks just to heal back up to full and get a little bit more mana to trade against Yunbi. But honestly, I don't think that this is too bad for Bradley at the moment. This is kind of how you expect the lane to play out between the two. As long as you hold on to that Scout of the Week for Syndra, Yunbi is going to always be apprehensive about jumping on top of Syndra, knowing that that can interrupt most of your damage.
It is going to be followed up by a teleport coming through here. Very even in CS at the moment. No big advantages going one way or the other, but Bradley really coming to this early game with a Dark Seal and a Doran's Ring. And across the map, we're seeing a very relatively slow, relatively solid approach from both these teams. Kind of uncharacteristic from Wildcard, but now Winston going to be chilling down here on the bottom side. He knows his bottom camps are available, so he doesn't really lose a whole lot of time being down here. He's likely going to just be clearing from bottom to top again.
It looked like a lane gank too, so there wasn't the vision for GGA on to Winston, but they should probably understand that he is more than likely in this bottom half of the map, which is why you see Niles playing so aggressively topside, but that's a lot of damage on to Newbie in the bot lane, and Niles too getting a good trade, bad trade against Brandini.
Yeah, again, very even across the board, right? We're seeing all the lanes kind of neutralize in terms of farm. Small advantage coming in for Brandini over Niles, but no fighting really coming through just quite yet. It looks like Trundle going to be a little bit aggressive, getting a read that Xin Zhao hasn't necessarily cleared out all the bottom camps, and he wants to be first to the punch when it comes to this next Scuttle Crowd. That's really where a lot of the differences are going to be coming in, and because Newbie is so low, going to have to be backing away, which should give Winston an extra man to play with.
So Youngby stepped up a little too far forward. No distortion available. Going to take a lot of damage there, but we'll be fine getting back towards the turret.
Xin Zhao bottom.
Yeah, we got to look bot lane, but it looks like, again, another gank, just this time on the reverse side. Not really going to amount to much for either team. A lot of chip damage on to their opponents, but it's like you were talking about, trying to get control around that Scuttle Crab, but with so many people already being on this bottom half of the map, I'd have to give that over to Winston just because of the Winston Xin Zhao matchup.
And look at how defensively Adaption has been posturing, right? He was so far behind Arrow, and now they actually see Rose and they're going to have to back up. No flash on Adaption.
No, Adaption is playing the safe and try to see if they can bait in Rose Thorn as well, wasting as much time as humanly possible, so that way Winston can now rotate down, knowing they're there with Gravitum, looking for the root on Newbie with the play as well, puts up the wall just to be a little safer. Nice jump in, first blood for Prismal. Arrow having to go back to his turret just to survive.
Ultimately, it just feels like Wildcard are a little bit more solid, a little bit more cautious this game than they were in the previous one, right? We definitely saw how aggressively they were playing, and this should be a good individual matchup between Trundle and the Xin Zhao. Really, as long as Winston can stifle what Rosethorn is looking to do, they should be very happy, but instead, they try and force the issue, and Rosethorn's like, well, I'm also here, you can't really walk up Thresh, you don't have any flash, and it's going to be resulting in not only a kill, but the Scuttle Crab going over as well, and this was the difference last game. Every single time there was a fight, even though they were kind of even, Wildcard were coming out slightly ahead, they were also getting the objectives every time afterwards as well. And Golden Guardians, it's only a Scuttle Crab and one kill, but it is a good start.
I was about to say, you say it's only a Scuttle Crab, but there's a level lead right now for Rosethorn over Winston into a matchup that normally is going to favor Winston. They even have right now Newbie right behind Rosethorn. They understand Winston is probably looking for that red buff. He tries to wrap around, but the nice block from the chickens to help defend Rosethorn. Here comes Niles to drag back in for Brandini with a nice haymaker and a buff up. Oh, look at that. Nice chop coming in from Winston to take him down. Newbie is taking a lot of damage. Brandini, showstopper into the backline to be able to make a 2-4-0. Niles as well, right in the thick of it all. About to go Mega. Brandini's low. Nice face breaker with the boulder to the face. 1 for 2, favoring Wildcard.
What's happening bottom lane, though, we are still seeing the ADCs just kind of tussling, but they are going to be backing away from each other. And again, this is kind of closer to the Wildcard I was expecting to see going in, just going for a lot of these fights. Brandini saying, well, the only way out is forward, trying to find another kill, and he is rewarded for his pressure, but now Newbie and Adaption both hovering mid.
Yeah, but we got to take a look at this replay. This is first going into the bot lane, where at first it seemed like a nice route on to Newbie, but like you said, no flash on the other side.
Yeah, the exhaust comes through, and unfortunately there's still just enough damage. It's not only Xin Zhao who's going to be hitting you, he is just going to be the one who's going to be going in and getting an assist on that fight, but it does go over to Prismal on the backside of that fight. And look at this, once again, everybody roaming up. Arrow, the only person not roaming up for this potential Rift Herald scuffle, and it looks like Wildcard recognizing that aren't going to be forcing the issue. Instead, they're going to be trying to give Arrow an opportunity to push things out, potentially get some plates, and not going to be risking their lives.
So here we go. We get the replay around that red buff, and at first it seems nice from GGA to try to answer the other side as well as the chicken body blocking the death sentence, but unfortunately they didn't wait long enough for Niles to be there too.
And it also just looks like Wildcard are more proactive. It's like, hey, they're here, we're just going to go for a fight. Whereas Golden Guardians were like, no, wait. We're still waiting for Niles to get here. He doesn't have a full bar. And that hesitancy in actually going for this fight is what gives Wildcard so many of their edges in these skirmishes. And Brandini, even though he does end up going down, he buys a lot of time, and it allows the rest of Wildcard to walk on out of the fight. So again, small victories, but we are very even in this game as we currently stand. Less than 100 gold between the two teams.
Yeah, and this is a better spot for the side of GGA than last time. Where last time they started losing out, especially around the neutral objectives. They've got the Eye, they've also got the Ocean Dragon, the two going towards GGA, helping them really stop that flow that they had previously witnessed on Wildcard side. But also here mid lane, Bradley in a bad spot, flashed away, but a little bit too late. You needed to get away from the chains. Knockup comes in. Winston has to subjugate on to Rosethorn. Rosethorn has Daption right behind him, right on his heels. Not going to get the death sentence. Newbie got Concussive Blow, is stacking on Adaption. They've got a lot of damage coming in from Newbie, waiting to see if he can jump back in, but he doesn't. Instead, they hold off that entire time, just taking the one kill as their prize.
That looked really weird coming in from Wildcard. I feel like there was a small failure in communication between the members because you saw Bradley knew Rosethorn was there. You guarantee that Winston is shouting out to his mid laner, yo, Zinjo's here. But it looks like Bradley was like, oh, that's great, now we can fight them. Whereas Winston was like, I don't necessarily know if I want to actually go for this fight. And because of the lack of communication between them, because they were on slightly different pages, we're seeing Golden Guardians come out. And I feel like that's been so much of the difference between these two teams. Golden Guardians really coming back and just rallying from a couple of missed team fights earlier, whereas Wildcard not necessarily staying up to their tip-top standards in all these early skirmishes.
This is the problem that they had faced yesterday, 2 days ago, against 100 Thieves Academy. When they fall behind early, the plan B just seems to be force fights after fights after fights. That doesn't always work out your way, especially if you end up coming out short, not really finding those plays, the picks before your opponents do. Here, GGA, they've got themselves now 1,000 gold lead at just 11 minutes.
I also feel like they have a little bit more control, right? Niles is winning in this top lane at this point. He is slightly ahead, and even though he's down in assist, he has the opportunity to move first for a lot of these engagements. Brandini on the set, once again, is a little bit slower because he's a melee champion into range, doesn't have the same kind of control over where the lane actually is during a lot of these fights. And I feel like that's been you know, not a huge difference, but it is really changing the calculus that Wildcard have to go through every single time. And now Yumby with the blue buff just be really aggressive onto Bradley, trading a lot of damage.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to trade like that, though, into Bradley, especially when Unleashed Power is up and available. You can't really distortion away from that ability. And you could see how much damage Yumby took while jumping in. It was a pretty rough trade.
But the thing is, as long as you're in a lane, if you can get priority, you can just walk out of the lane and go pick up a honey fruit. So I feel like Yunbi thought there was one available, and it just means that you aren't really worried. And as this Rift Roll crashes bottom lane, we see Arrow use the cleanse as well. Oh, nice
pillar to get a nice slow too. Rosethorn getting a bit of distance with the flay to drag him back in. Winston took a lot of damage from Prismal immediately the moment he joined into that fight, so he's got to be a bit more careful. But at least they were able to stop the turret from falling.
Interesting. Winston not committing the ultimate. It looked really good of a pillar, but it doesn't look like he wants to commit for the fight. Newbie is going to be just scouting things out, and Golden Guardians are in a much better position now, partly because they are, you know, dragging out this game a little bit further. And now look at this, Rosethorn's here behind them.
Crescent Sweep was able to get the flash from Daption. He jumps back in. Here's going to be the Lantern on top of him to take down Rosethorn too early on the play. Like before, they've lost the jungler and they've lost the play.
All right, well, again, as soon as I start praising them for their restraint, we see Rosethorn just hopping over the wall, thinking he can separate people, but the pillar, once again, Winston actually playing this Trundle extremely well. Now, Arrow, he thinks they back, but he's wrong.
Yeah, the flash just to get away. It's going to be the flash in from Prismal with concussive blows, but the TP behind. They're taken low. Needs to get that Ignite, but then Ignite is not going to pick up the kill. It's going to be a flash in from Brandini on top of Prismal, getting a lot of damage as well. 2 TPs now being committed by GGA. Bradley, he's getting into this fight as best he can, but it's way too far away from Brandini, so Yunbi's able to take him out before he can even join in. Niles hopping away. Unleashed Power got a lot of damage, but Yunbi, he's hunting. He wants kills. Doubled up onto Arrow. Daption, he's so low. Just need one more tick. With the Q, he gets a triple kill for Yunbi. 4 kills now for LeBlanc.
Oh boy, Arrow's misstep. He made an assumption that wasn't correct, and it's really going to be hurting the team. Not only are they giving over 3 kills, but also know what we were talking about earlier. Gnar is constantly having to push up in this top lane, and he's able to get so many minions underneath the turret up top. Brandini loses a ton of gold and experience off of that, not even able to get the kill, and this is such a terrible spot for Wildcard Red. We've seen them come back from larger deficits before, but they're not setting themselves up for success against the team that has the most success in these really long games. Brandini tries to find this, but unfortunately doesn't have the opportunity to actually use the ult. He never commits it, never gets the damage down, and ends up just getting hunted down. And then we get to see Yumbi on this LeBlanc having so much success. He's just a wolf in the sheep's pen, looking for a person after person, and again, expecting the only way out is forward, fighting the kill onto Daption, and getting so much distance by going back to the distortion that there's no way for Wildcard to do anything.
Also, massive props to Niles on that TP. Perfect timing with the Rage Bar so he can have that Gnar ult into the wall that separates Wildcard with Brandini diving as far as you were talking about. I know it's support because who could get away from Niles? Nobody could. Now they've traded a turret for turret. This is all favoring GGA. As you had talked about, this is a team that if they're even, I mean, hell, even last game when they were behind, found fights that won at 11k deficits.
Well, I don't expect to see a situation just quite like that, right? It's pretty hard to win those 11k deficit fights, but Golden Guardians were able to do it, and now they're the ones who are starting to take control of the map a little bit. Even though we saw the top lane turret go down first, there is still an advantage here for Niles. Brandini on the set doesn't have an item really particularly close to being finished at this point, and Golden Guardians happy to use the fact that they have more members up top. The fact that Niles still has his Rage Bar, all he does back away, so I guess he's not as committed to this fight. But the fact that they have more people up top lane so quickly, they're going to be getting themselves their another neutral objectives. They're going to be getting this Rift Herald and looking to open up the mid lane soon.
I also love that Yunbi is holding on to that Dark Seal. 9 stacks on to the ring. If he upgrades that to Magi's, he'll make me a very happy caster. You know I love my Magi's. And here, there's a lot to be able to prove against Bradley, who held on to the Magi's, nearly had it full stacked at one point. And going in against the LeBlanc at a full stack Magi's. I've seen that blow up pretty squishy members, and I'm looking across the board at Wildcard at this moment. They're looking fairly susceptible to dying immediately to a LeBlanc. With Newbie hanging on the wings with Rosethorn, Niles is going to be fairly protected underneath this turret.
But I also feel like Wildcard are clearly the ones making these proactive moves. Whether they realize they're at a deficit or not, or even if they think they're equal, they're the ones still forcing the tempo of the game. They feel like they have the tools to actually be aggressive and potentially look for a lot of these dives. So Niles, while he had a lot of people behind him, that's a play that Wildcard can go for again before the next dragon actually spawns, and it might be successful next time.
Once you see Yunbi pop his face in top lane, no TP, because you know every single TP had been used in that previous fight, you knew you could force the issue. You can go right into the jungle of GGA, making it so that they're struggling a little bit at this moment. Just losing out on the camps. The blue buff picked up by Bradley, which means that I think Yunbi actually went and grabbed that away from Winston by himself. So at least they'll be somewhat traded, but it gives a lot of control still to Wildcard despite being at a deficit.
It always feels interesting when the team that is behind is the one still setting the tempo of the game, right? It really says a lot about like the confidence of your players. Wildcard, very, very confident in their ability to play, obviously. They now have their items starting to come through, and I like the adaptation that's actually happening from Prismal. Even though the Serpent's Fang ends up being a little bit less useful against a lot of teams, it is very useful against the shield bow that's coming out from Arrow, as well as Brandini, who's got this massive shield and is almost always going to be building the Sterix.
And Thresh. It also helps against Daption. It's got a lot of uses there. I'm a fan. I like it. Whenever I see there's a lot of shields on the other side, Serpent's Fang this early on, nice touch. It's a nice adaptation coming in from GGA as they pop the eye mid lane. Easy tower take for themselves. They've already got a pretty sizable gold lead between Prismal and Arrow for their side, and giving more gold over to Prismal at this point to make him do a lot more. With Daption had to flash away because he knew that there's not a fight against these two.
Well, I really like the aggression that's starting to come out from Golden Guardians, right? They need to open up the map. They need to create space for this LeBlanc to play. Yunbi already with 4 kills, like you said, looking so aggressive. Now at Brandini, they get the second crash in the mid lane, and it becomes so hard to defend your vision around these Raptors and Wolves.
A nice pillar, though, from Winston. Brandini took a lot of damage immediately with Yunbeat so low. He's still alive, though, on the other side. Same with Rosethorn. They have to get back towards the team. 4v5. They've got the pick onto the tank. They can peel back if they want to. Wait it out for that dragon.
But there's also 50 seconds left. A lot of ultimates have been used from both sides. Niles has his, but gets snuffed a little bit right there by the Syndra. And this just means that we're in for another fight coming up rather soon. Notice that pretty much everybody still has summoner spells, but the big difference now is which team is going to be more reliant on their ultimates. I definitely feel as though Winston is going to be blowing up really quickly without his ultimate if they do try and fight for this Infernal Dragon. I wouldn't be surprised if any other team that wasn't Wildcard would have given this up, but I feel like Wildcard feel the need to go for it.
But here, we look at this mid lane play. Honestly, it seemed nice at first. Nice pillar. But look at the damage that Brandini took immediately from the entire fight.
Yeah, he's just isolated, right? You don't have Syndra hitting, you don't have a Philios hitting, which is so key to how this team actually plays. Arrow just not in a position to do anything just quite yet. Brandini's going a little bit too early, but now they find the support.
Nice play on a newbie, but he puts up the wall the wrong way. Dragged back in by the facebreaker, so they can pick up a kill pretty easily. Brandini knocked up, kill, 1 for 1. Arrow, he is low on the other side, but GGA, they don't even need to play for that. They want to play for the objectives, the soul point potential right in their arms.
Okay, Niles looking for something. His ultimate not available, but they are zoning multiple members out, and now they can hit the dragon, but they need to be careful they don't commit too many people for fight on the other side, because Rosethorn is distracted in the meantime. They also have a window before Brandini comes up with a teleport, and Wildcard will be looking to re-engage. Instead, going to be getting another dragon over to Golden Guardians at this point, and with the third one done, they're looking at about a 25-26 minute Infernal Soul, which becomes incredibly difficult for the members of Wildcard to deal with, simply because their front line will crumble.
And having a LeBlanc be the one to have that Infernal Soul too is going to make things even worse. Then you add in Prismal. Even if he's only 1, 0, and 3, he's got Eclipse. He's got Serpent's Fang completed as well. That is about a full item if you take into account the boots and the Tear of the Goddess over Arrow on the other side.
We'll see how effective it actually comes through, right? They have a lot of... Oh, Adaption.
I told you, you can't do anything to Yunbi. He's got 10 stacks on that the Dark Seal. He's got a Cosmic Drive as well. Bradley, he's spotted out. They know he's here. That might have been a nice scout of the week, but here comes Yunbi with the help of the Blast Cone to get over the wall. They've got a Dark Sphere dodged away, but Newbie, Winston, both of them now have to fight, bashing each other right in the face. Ugly Power picks up the kill. This might be a nice pick coming in from the side of Wildcard if they can get the kill on Yunbi. Jumping over the wall, doubled up, but Prismal on the other side to help save his life with Rosethorn diving in too. Showstopper into the middle of all of them, even with the Crescent Strike. He's got to jump over the wall with a flash, and they've got a lot of damage dodging away from the Moonlight Vigil. And somehow Yunbi escapes with his life.
Look, the fact that Brandini had that ultimate over the wall and ends up surviving because of it, super cool. Unfortunately, Rosethorn trying to get away, does have to use a smite. Winston looking for something, but it also, again, remember we talked about this earlier, Niles is constantly in a spot where he's able to push up more aggressively. He's able to hit these turrets because Brandini so willing to give up these waves to actually go for fights. It's going to be giving this turret over to Niles, and that's 2 kills worth of gold that Niles is going to be picking up.
And you talked about side lanes in the previous game for GGA. If they play it around the side lanes, that was their way to come back into this game. Well, it's even better when you have a lead and you're the ones dictating the pace of the game against Wildcard. You pick up Daption again for Yunbi to be godlike.
Look, I gotta say, I'm a little biased. I love Daption. He's so cute, but now Yunbi is just preying on him, and Winston, they're trying to lock down the troll too.
I think they just want to force him away. They got at least a little bit away, a little bit of distance, so they can then turn onto this objective if they want to force it.
Okay, well, yeah, without Daption's ability to actually control a lot of the vision around here, it's going to be difficult for the members of Wildcard to walk in. Daption's going to take a long time to get here, and we'll see. Do Golden Guardians want to burn this, or do they want to turn? It looks like they're looking to turn.
Yunbi got a lot of damage onto Brandini. Haymaker shield keeps him alive, but now a little bit of poke. Niles Nora into the wall. Brandini, he's alive still, though, with the help of that Gore Drinker. Niles taking a lot of damage. Same with Prismal, the flash away. Going to be able to get the killing spree. They've taken down 2 members. Yunbi's on the other side, but it's a trade 2 for 1. Wildcard making sure to stop the Baron in its tracks.
And that's what we were looking for. We were looking for a decisive turn from Golden Guardians. Did they want to burn it, or did they want to turn? Well, when we see the replay, we'll get to see which one they actually go for. Wildcard, now with Temp on the map, are going to be hitting this Daption, looking to force Rosethorn and Newbie right on out. And even though Yumbi picks up the blue buff, that's a turret falling in the mid lane. Gold lead still significantly in favor of Golden Guardians, but every little bit matters. And now we're just going to get to have a chance to do it again, Magical. We got the Baron still on the field. Everybody's going to be coming through, but watch how this happens. Niles wants to go for the turn. He's like, look, I'm going to kill Winston here. Great ultimate, good use of the animation cancel and the understanding of the Narbar, but everybody else on the team, Rosethorn was still hitting. Prismal was still hitting. They don't necessarily have control of this brush, and Prismal just disappears instantly. A split call as to whether or not they were trying to turn just leaves Niles too far forward, and Wildcard with their team fight victory.
Gunby, oh no! Distortion's away, doubled up too, but Moonlight Vigil, he goes golden, but look who's there! Box laid down, shut down for Arrow!
That's 1,000 gold going over to this Aphelios all at once. That's a lot all at once, right? And we also have this Infernal Dragon coming up. Now, Yumbi doesn't have Flash, but he should be alive. Everybody still has time to get back and spend their gold, and I'm expecting Arrow to come back with potentially a full Lord Dominic's Regards to try and chew through everyone super quickly. Bradley continues to push up, and look at this. Golden Guardians not looking to control vision around the dragon just yet. They know they're down members. Instead, they want to make sure that there's no opportunity for Wildcard to try and sneak a Baron.
But this is going to be a problem for GGA. They had been stacking up these dragons. Sure, it might not be the worst thing to lose a single dragon, but it delays them a little bit. It makes it so Arrow can continue to scale up. He is now even with Prismal in items, and that was one of the strengths that GGA had going into these team fights.
Okay. And now it's all about controlling these choke points. Winston going to be clearing out the vision so that it's so hard for Wildcard. Okay, good stun.
Out of the week, but still, no jump in. Neither team wants to engage. The pull, though, Rosethorn, he gets rooted to by Gravitum. Yunbi goes in, getting a little bit of damage onto Winston, but a nice lantern away. Keeps him with the rest of the team. The Dragon has been started up by Wildcard. They want to force the issue against GGA. They feel confident, powerful going into this Dragon play. They need to force the fight, though. They're waiting this entire down. It's 50%. Who's going to be able to secure it? Yunbi over the wall, only getting a little bit of damage onto Brandini. Still has the shield if need be, with Winston taking a lot of damage. Nice Glacial Fissure, but there's going to be a showstopper. Niles is dead. Brandini still alive in the back line. Finally, he's taken down the Asylums, but they got the kill onto Prismal. Rosethorn, the next to fall, giving more gold over to Arrow. Yunbi and Newbie, they've been split apart. They have driven the Mama Elephant away. The flash in from Winston to chase down the support. They've got a slow, they've got the damage, they got a killing spree for Arrow, and you better bet your ass they're going to have a Baron.
Okay, now we gotta see, can Yumbi be the hero that his team needs? They need to find something. Remember, there are still 3 dragons to the Infernal Soul. Yumbi, though, takes way too long to go for it, but he's got a lot of HP. He just doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of mana. Instead, he's gonna be peeling off. Wildcard finding a fight while down 3,000 gold. They just kill Niles instantly.
Brandini has TP too. They can TP in for the Baron, denying the soul on top of it all from GGA.
Okay, this is going to be big. Wildcard really bringing this game back. They were down 6,000 gold earlier, and now as they pick this dragon up, nobody on Golden Guardians can be able to get there in time. They are going to get their first dragon of the game, putting back Golden Guardians scaling into this late game an extra 5 minutes behind. But as we watch this, notice how Golden Guardians are playing this. They are trying to get the bar onto Niles, and instantly, as soon as he hits that bar, yeeted into the rest of the team. This big damage across, and Brandini stays alive for long enough, even though he has a small shield from the Serpent's Fang. They break up the fight. They really make it difficult for them to try and defend this Varus, and Yunbi just not able to find the assassinations, taking too long to try and pick off these individual members.
But that's where you just have to applaud Brandini, knowing exactly, as you talked about, that Niles was waiting for the Rage Bar, and the moment he hit it, the moment he was going to jump in, showstopper right back. The team never had a chance to gnaw anybody into the wall.
But now, with the Baron buff, we have to see how effective Wildcard are going to be able to use this. They still have to pick up a lot of turrets. They're down 2. They need to find a gold lead. They need to continue to find opportunities to fight, and they are just driving things forward. Niles is going to be losing a lot of wards. They have 4 members up here in the top side, but Yumbi completely isolated in the bottom lane.
And here, that gold lead that GGA had been having, they had all the time in the world to be able to utilize, is completely gone. With Baron on top of 5 members of Wildcard, they're making the play around tier 2 top lane. More gold they'd love to pick up over GGA, who are defending this as valiantly as they possibly can, but Rosethorn barely holds on to his dear life.
Niles is going to be popping this Narbar right now. It becomes very difficult for them to try and find a fight when, as you said, Rosethorn's already chunked out. Yumbi comes around the corner trying to find something, takes about a third of Daption's health and continuing to damage him with Prismal, but it's so difficult for them to actually do anything in this situation. Wildcard are so good at creating these concave fights. I want to see how effectively they're able to get. They've only gotten 1 turret with this Baron, which is, you know, more than nothing, but not the kind of Baron power play we're used to seeing from Wildcard.
The thing is, though, I'd almost make an argument that that's worthwhile. You've delayed the Soul, you've delayed the scaling on GGA, and you've given it over to Arrow. You've given a lot of gold to Bradley, too, who has completed that Magi's, where Yunbi might have been a coward and not completed it. Bradley said, to hell with it, I've got the book.
Got the book, got everything you need, 10 Magi stacks. Yumbi only has 6 on his Dark Seal, and as they start to move forward, feels like this LeBlanc is kind of struggling to find purchase in these later situations. And as they're continuing to get pushed out, we have to note that the Baron is gone, right? It's got 5 seconds left before it can do anything. That is not enough time to even impact a turret. But we're also noticing that the LeBlanc, as the game gets longer and longer, you will eventually be able to blow up every single person on this team, not just the squishy members. You can also start looking to blow up Winston, as we are seeing how much damage they're able to do right now to this troll.
But the thing is, Bradley can do the exact same thing. You land a good Dark Sphere Scatter the Weak combo with Unleashed Power, nobody's going to be able to stand up to you. You can see that Yunbi is so apprehensive jumping forward, using Distortion to clear out the minion waves, because there's better to do that than get Scatter the Weak dead by Bradley.
Well, you don't want to die. That's
Yep.
always a scary spot, but right now, Bradley, total control. Look how many members are here. Brandini doesn't have teleport, but Niles does. And we'll see, Brandini needs to control this Gnar. He needs to make sure that Gnar doesn't take any more structures, and also can't be the first one to defy it. So he's clearing everything out right now. And I do want to point out something a little bit interesting. Remember, the earlier Serpent's Fang, it really pushes out the ability for Brandini to want to get these Sterix. And Sterix is one of the best items you can get on set. The extra shield that you're getting, the extra healing it provides, and just the damage that you're going to be getting on all of your abilities makes it so valuable. He's actually pushed it off. He's got 3 components.
Yeah. I think it's a smart call. It's like you're saying, that you get the shield, and then you have Serpent's Fang that takes it away immediately. Almost gets no use for you. The Haymaker shield's enough at this point. Might as well reduce the damage you take from someone like Prismal. I'd like to see that completed eventually, but for now, it's good. I mean, he's really just going to be the guy jumping in, denying Niles any engage. Same with Rosethorn, whoever is the one he can catch out. While here, Wildcard force away GGA. We've got 40 seconds until the dragon spawns, and GGA, if they can get this soul, that is going to help them immensely with how far they've now fallen.
Ooh, yeah, look at the damage that Winston is currently taking from Prismal's arrows. It's really not a lot, but Yumbi's damage, he's got the Blighting Jewel, he's got the Magic Penetration, he's going to be doing a little bit more. And the crucial thing here, Golden Guardians, I say this, I feel like almost every game where there's a soul on the table, Golden Guardians, they obviously want the soul, but they don't need to fight for it. They can devote members to the other side of the map because they know Wildcard has to deny them the soul. They're going to be picking up this top lane turret, and how much more are they going to get? What is Wildcard going to do to the fact that Golden Guardians is not playing for the dragon at all? They're playing for the top lane.
Oh yeah, look at this, look at this. You can even see right now they're trying to make the call to go on to dragon. They've recalled Daption, but the turret will be taken by GGA. Even with Brandini and Daption in the area, looking to hunt them down, they just cannot get on top of the members of GGA.
Dragon goes over to Wildcard, though, and it is a bit of a trade, right? Golden Guardians can afford to do that once more if they really want to. They can afford to give up another Dragon if they think that they can get more on the map. Here, it's a little bit more nebulous. Is the Dragon worth this inhibitor turret? Well, now, if Golden Guardians ever get the Baron, it becomes very trivial for them to try and end the game with that buff. But, in the meantime, it's still a lot of effective gold you're giving over. These Dragons become more and more valuable the later the game goes, especially for Infernal.
But we still have a while until we'll have that dance. Instead, it's going to be our purple worm that we see everyone tangling around.
Oh, he's just hitting.
Even Winston starting it up. Is he going to bait them in? They're not really answering this just yet on the side of GGA. I don't think they realize.
Okay, well, they have to realize now the pink ward's down and they get the hook onto Nubi, but that's not discouraging Winston. He's getting teleport out of Yumbi.
I like that. They've gotten TP, they've got advantage on the side of Wildcard. GGA are going to have to be a lot more cautious around this. Niles can be on the side lane duty, but that's going to be one crucial target, one crucial member. They got to engage for the team that has to spend time on the side.
All the vision has been cleared out from Wildcard, and LeBlanc's super scary if you're able to play from Fog of War. Eventually, she will find somebody. Like, Wildcard does have a timer. It's unclear how long that timer is going to be, but eventually, Yumbi will kill someone, and there's not a lot that Wildcard will be able to do about it. So they're pushing in, they're retaking control of all the vision around this Baron buff. Potentially looking to start it up once again. We saw a bit of a split call earlier as to whether or not they were trying to hit it or actually look for the turn from Golden Guardians. Wildcard, we praise them for their decisiveness. I don't think they're likely to make the same mistake.
No, 34 minutes into the game, with Wildcard having not really the advantage they normally have at this point against GGA, who are holding the line pretty well. They might have had the lead earlier on, but they haven't forfeited anything in their base, unlike Wildcard, who had to in order to deny that soul.
Also notice how even the side lane waves have really been. When there aren't a lot of people willing to go for a lot of these split pushes, the waves have just kind of hovered in the center of the map this entire time, right? Nobody's really losing more than the other team would be, right? Nobody's necessarily playing to the sides, because if you get caught out by the Syndra or LeBlanc, you can instantly lose the game. You kind of need to give up some of those side waves.
So I actually am going to just change your perspective a little bit. I'm looking at this experience difference between Bradley and between Yunbi. Bradley is already level 18. Last game, he got full build as well at just shy of 30 minutes into this game. He is one component away from being full build on this Syndra. He has been farming like a maniac. He nearly had to Flame Horizon. He can one-shot Prismal, even though he has to trade his own life. Wait, no, he doesn't! The shield to keep him alive! Arrow flashed away! He's good, too! Winston on the side. He's looking for the flank, but they've spotted him out. Oh, Niles, he didn't get the hop over the wall!
Oh man, that was crazy. I can't believe Prismal just walked up like that. Ends up trading his life down, but they are so close to getting Bradley peeling off those Magi stacks. Instead, he's going to be able to teleport right back in.
And look at Winston, look at Arrow and Daption. They have a flank angle, they got a pillar too they can utilize, but Yunbi, he keeps him nice and cleared away. Niles has gone mega. Wait out the timers, Wildcard. No reason to play too greedy at this moment. You have plenty of time before Prismal's going to be able to rejoin this fight. They understand that and they push back GGA yet again.
10 seconds left, 5 seconds left for Prismal, and now it's going to take him 20 seconds to even get towards the Baron. This is a little bit late for them to try and do anything. Wildcard have a small window here of 5v4, and Niles doesn't have the rage bar. It's actually a 30-second window before Niles can really participate.
1B got a lot of damage onto Brandini. Haymaker shield to keep him alive, but it's only going to be an inevitability before he finally falls. If the purple worm can get him, that's why Wildcard completely peel back, let the aggro reset.
Okay, well this is super dangerous. They can't afford to recall everybody once again, because Golden Guardians can be the one to try and actually hit the Baron. Yeah. Look at the fact that they're recalling Brandini, and only Brandini, he has a teleport.
He's got TP, and look at that nice deep ward right in mid lane that he can TP to, catching out GGA if they overstay their welcome.
30 seconds left on the Infernal Dragon. Remember, Golden Guardians 1 away from Soul. Wildcard still need 2. This is a big fight potentially brewing. Golden Guardians, again, they don't have to play for it, but they are currently choosing to sit here with mid lane priority. They need to make sure that they aren't giving over anything. And Prismal, playing at this range makes a little bit more sense, right? He wants to throw out a lot of these arrows and just puncture people down over and over. Niles, his rage bar going to be coming out a little bit early, so that means there's 30 seconds left before he can get another one.
And waiting it out is Wildcard. They understand there's a timer, a window that they can play aggressively. Arrow took a lot of damage. Niles tried to go over the wall. He's about to run out of Meganar. They got the engage on the other side. Brandini, though, he has to get into this. Well, Winston had to flash away. Low health bars on the side of GGA. The jump in. Showstopper flashed away by Newbie to stay alive. Knockup coming in from Roseland with the help of Gordrinker, but that's a lot of damage from the Haymaker shield. Bradley takes him down with the help of Brandini. They've got the kill more stacked on their side. Wildcard have the inside track onto the Dragon. Dragon. GGA need to be able to deny this. That's a big one to lose. 3 Infernal Dragons on the side of Wildcard. If they can secure this, they have Yunbi, they have Niles, but they don't have Roseland. This Knight is not there, but it's going to be committed. It will be Wildcard taking it for themselves. Niles jumping over the wall. All the while, it's Prismal and Newbie getting chased down by Winston and co. Wildcard, they've got a 3rd dragon to their name. Winston taking a lot of damage from Prismal. There's Yunbi to shut him down, make sure he could escape out of the piercing arrow from Prismal to take down another. They've got the inside track now into the Baron.
Okay, Winston ends up dying. Rosethorn is going to be up. That is going to be a situation of a 5v3 coming in for Golden Guardians. They're able to find all the plays, and Yunbi finally finding his angles in order to push people out of the fight. Even though Arrow stayed alive, he wasn't able to do anything through that entire period. And now, as they start to move forward, Prisma will be able to heal up with this red buff. But look at this, teleport's coming through. Brandini's here, so is Niles.
They have to make sure that they are the ones with the inside track onto that Baron. Getting a lot of damage onto Brandini. Blue buff flying in over the wall, but Brandini took a lot more damage from that initially. Bradley gets knocked up. Bradley is shut down. Arrow 2 jumped on by Yunbi and Rosethorn. Knocked up into the air and finished off with a shutdown.
Okay, Golden Guardians, they could potentially try and end the game here, but it looks like they're going to take a bit of a slower approach. They are going to be pushing through. They don't need to go for the Baron. They know that there's 40 seconds left before Bradley and Arrow do come back up. We'll see what kind of defense Wildcard can go for, because it's so difficult. They don't have any of their damage if they need to.
No. Nor do they have wave clear. That's the big thing. They can't get rid of these minions quickly. It will be the inhibitor turret taken in mid lane. They've got the top lane wide open too. 20 seconds until Arrow and Bradley both respawn. They've got plenty of time to look for this game. The jump in from Brandini to try to burn as much on Anubi, but he's dead. It's gone, and Winston that entire time he took out the minions. That's a big win for the side of Winston, denying the end game for GGA, but they still have the Baron on the table.
Inhibitor goes down, and now look at this. Daption walking too far forward, right into Yumbi.
Oh, but the flash away, one more auto, takes him out as well, and they're resetting these timers, the death timers for both Brandini and Daption. They might have Bradley and Arrow available, but they are hoping for a miracle.
This is so tough, but now they have the damage at least to try and blow these members up. Notice that Niles already down to half, Newbie down to half. Then they're going to be coming out. They can't afford to give over this Baron with their base already in shambles. Look for Winston, try and go for some kind of smite steal, but Yumbi, he barely has enough mana, but he can do one combo and Arrow.
Yes, he can, especially when he cleanses away. Unleash power, he goes golden. Bradley can take out Yunbi, but he flashed to survive. Has a blast cone too.
Rosethorn?
Oh, he's out of here, but now this is Wildcard's turn. They can turn to see if they can force the issue around Baron.
Okay, Winston looking at Rosethorn right now. Multiple people are going to have to back. There's no real way for them to teleport because they don't even have the summoner spells up. Look at this. Wildcard, firm control of the Baron buff.
Force it right now. You've got Arrow, you've got Bradley, you've got Winston in the pit. Even if Brandini and Daption are far away, they are the tanks. They've got a lot of damage now. Look how quickly they're burning down the Baron. 50%. Rosler has Blast Cone as well as Lightning becomes Thunder. He can dive into the pit. It's going to be a redemption to spot out and heal up the members of Wildcard. It's below 25%. Wildcard can't commit. They don't want to have a smite fight over it because that'd be too risky. 41 minutes into the game. This is GGA's territory.
Both teams are of the opinion that they don't want to go for a 50-50 smite. They both think that they have a better chance of winning if they just don't go for this fight right now. And honestly, it's really hard to say. There's a small gold lead for Golden Guardians, but these fights are so back and forth. Yunbi finally, again, he was sitting at 8-1 for the longest time, found a couple of kills, one on the Daption, one onto Winston, and now they're looking for these ways to actually try and end the game. Yunbi now in the fog of war. As item inventories become full, it's harder and harder to get these control wards down to actually control any of the vision.
We're getting a lot of full builds now. Prismal's got his full build. Yunbi's got his. We got to take a look at this replay. I mean, this is a greedy play from both sides, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. Every single person coming down here, Niles trying to be really aggressive, and I thought it was initially going to be Brandini who was going to be struggling here, but instead it's Bradley who gets caught by the chain of corruptions on the end, and unfortunately, not a whole lot left to do when you do get knocked up. And it just feels like Golden Guardians are finding these opportunities to be a little bit more coordinated than Wildcard Red is, and it's giving them a lot of opportunities to play. As long as you can do these kind of things, it's going to be able to work. You can beat almost any team, but I also have to praise Wildcard for the cerebral ability to just say, hey, Winston, we actually can't win this fight, we just need to kill the wave.
Winston too, that's the thing that's big for me, is Brandini gives his life so Winston can take out the minions.
Yeah, I mean, Brandini, we got to say he used the ultimate and the W on the minions. He made sure that he was in the middle there so that the true damage was on everybody. We got to fight here.
We got to
game.
fight immediately. Rosethorn still alive. Nara into the wall. They're focusing on an arrow. Bradley still barely alive. A huge shield on the other side, but they got the kill on Redemption. They're going to follow it up with a GA pop onto Arrow. They can focus him down. They've got the kill on a Prismal. Arrow's back up in the fight, but he's hopped and skipped. He got Goomba stumped, baby. Brandini too. It's a double kill from Niles. They only have Bradley to worry about.
Oh my god, at the very end, we don't even get to see the setup for it, but we just know Niles gets this huge ult. They catch everybody. Arrow had no flash, and now Bradley, the last person alive, doesn't have the damage to kill all of these members. He might get one or two, but hey, with nothing left to do for 30 seconds on everybody else on Wildcard, Bradley needs to be a hero if he wants to continue their lead.
This is going to take a lot, though, to be able to get rid of all the minions and 4 members of GGA who can take up the turret the entire time. Both Nexus Search fall. The knock-up and the instant pop of Bradley. That is going to be game for GGA. We're tied at 1 apiece.
Wasn't the cleanest thing in the world. Golden Guardian started the game with a 6,000 gold lead before Wildcard brought it back within a spitting distance of actually taking the series 2-0 and putting themselves on triple match point, but instead back and forth, both these teams able to really push each other towards the brink. I knew this was going to be close, but I didn't expect it to go like this.
What a game, too. 44 minutes into that one is what we got to experience between GGA and Wildcard. And from the get-go, it seemed like this might have been GGA's game, but Wildcard put up one hell of a defense.
They're so good at team fighting, Alex. They are so good at finding these situations where they have these small leads, but unfortunately, they didn't find the setups. Golden Guardians bested them this time.
That they did, and we are now tied at 1 apiece between the two teams trying to join up against Immortals Academy in the top 4. For now, we're going to toss it to a break. We'll be back with the Analyst Desk, so stick around. We'll be there.